Dancing here on my own. My friends lost me, I need to go home. One drink in my hand and one on my clothes.
Hello and welcome to the Murray Miles for Mobilised podcast. My name is Greg Pinder. This is John Overeem. And we are here to break some records and raise some money for a magnificent cause. Thanks so much for joining us. We are beyond excited. I'm full of nerves, John. I don't know about you, but this is an idea that we've been holding on for a while, and we're really excited to be coming into this platform. Jono, do you want to give us a little bit of a idea of what we're doing here?
Absolutely. So firstly, we are currently in the Snowy's podcast studios at the moment. For those of you that have seen the socials, Snowy's Outdoors come on as a main sponsor for us, and part of that was here's our studio, record a podcast and see how you go. And so here we are talking to you guys with zero clue of what we're doing, but
you're right about that. It is a real sort of have a crack mentality, isn't it? With
absolutely.
with this, and then also with this actual paddle challenge that we haven't actually talked about yet.
We should probably mention what we're actually doing. So Greg and I, we intend to paddle the entire length of the Murray River quicker than anyone's done it before in a tandem. The record was set essentially in 1979 by a couple of military canoeists, or with a full team and pace setters and all sorts. And we've looked and spoken to all the official bodies and whatnot, and no one's actually completed it for time since. So we thought, 40 years later, surely we can give them a crack. We've got 240 extra Ks to go than what they did. They went from Albury to Goolwa. We're going to start Brigham Brong Bridge to Goolwa, which is at the base of Mount Kosciuszko. And, essentially just
paddle home.
Yeah, keep paddling until our arms fall off. And, that's about it.
We brief Murray River history. The Murray River is the longest river at 2,500 kilometres, which if you stretched it out straight, that'd cover from about Adelaide to Perth. The Indigenous Australians talk about the river's formation in the Narrandjeri dreaming story, speaking of a giant cod widening the stream with big sweeps of its tail. It starts, as Jono mentioned, at Kosciuszko, so at the base of the Australian Alps, and it runs as a border between Victoria and New South Wales.
Yep, there you go. That's the Murray. That's what we're paddling on. And you're probably thinking, why are we doing a podcast about this? Which is an absolute fair question. Essentially, we just, we want to squeeze every little drop out of this as we can as an experience. So a big part of that is obviously we're going to raise money for charity. We are raising money for We Are Mobilise, a homelessness charity that's doing fantastic work, especially in the last few years. A lot of you would be familiar with Ned Brockman. He's essentially the guy who put them on the map and just raising ridiculous money for them. In no way do we intend to be able to pump out those sort of numbers, but we're going to do...
We've got a goal.
We've got a goal.
We've got
a much smaller goal.
Much smaller goal than Ned.
We're going to give it a shake. So let's make some noise. Let's we'll start a podcast. We'll do the social media stuff, which it's neither of our worlds at all. But I thought let's give it a go. And here we are sitting in a studio with headphones on, just talking. 1979, this record was set. Ian Dellar and Michael Wentworth, 17 days from Albury to Goolwa. Huge effort. And they are with us here today as the very first guests on the Murray Miles from Mobilise podcast. Joining them as well is their commander at the time, Don Hughes, and Keith Lawrie as support as well, which he'll go more into because there's a lot more into it than just support. So, welcome, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great to be here.
Thanks, quite a privilege.
We are just like my excitement since seeing you guys is just like I'm so excited. Yeah, thank you, heaps guys for being here. Don was just saying that it's been 20 years at least since he's seen Keith. Is that about right for all of you guys?
For Michael and myself, it's over 30.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, it was contact. Ian made contact, for you guys when you started this, which was great. I'm glad he did.
Do you guys remember what year you all first met at the army? At the
1974.
74.
Yeah.
74. We all joined. The 20. They go by intake numbers. So the Army Apprentices School started in 48, just after World War II, and because the Army needed technical people. So all the full array of trades that the Army needed, mechanical trades and building trades and electronics tradespeople. So in 48, they established the Army Apprentices School down at Balcombe, which was an old World War II Army camp on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. And we were the 29th intake in 1974. And that's a really interesting year because 73, the Vietnam conflict wound down. Gough Whitlam pulled us out of Vietnam, and our intake was actually a very reduced intake. Normally, an intake of apprentices, Army apprentices, would be a couple of hundred, and ours was only about 100. So it was quite a small special.
I think it was 30 was the normal numbers, and ours was 89, Don.
Yeah,
if I remember those figures correctly,
Yeah.
And, so we had a wonderful time by being a reduced number.
Well, for the record, I was a year behind these guys. I was the 30th intake.
Yeah,
there you go.
Young boy.
Yeah.
And
the ones we pick on.
I came back I came to raise the standards.
Very good.
excuse me if it's rude, but how old were you guys in 74 then when you came together?
16.
16.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Don't see too many 16-year-olds joining the military anymore.
The absolute minimum age was 15 to join the Army as an Army apprentice. So there are some young fellows who join at 15.
Yeah, right. Very cool. So we've spoken very briefly, we'll go more into it, of obviously Don, Michael and Ian. Keith, love to hear your role in the paddle back in 79. What was your part that you played?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I was, out of nowhere, I think it was Ian or Michael tapped me on the shoulder and said, you want to come with us on the Murray River adventure, and we're looking for people to paddle in pace canoes to support the record attempt. So I hadn't ever been in a two-man canoe or kayak, and that's where it started. So a little bit of training on the wild Goulburn River in flood. The river in flood was my first attempt. Oh, you'll be right, Keith. Just head down there, and we end up walking. Lost the canoe and ended up walking halfway to Seymour. That was my crew member and me. I'll never forget that. But but that's how it started. Was you want to do that? And I thought, wow, what a wonderful adventure. No work, and go away and just leisurely paddle down the Murray. Well, I had a lot of learning.
Leisurely, I don't know if I'd call that 120 k's a day, but sure.
The role itself, though.
And Jono, the whole thing really started in a way with Ian and Chris George. They decided to get a mould of an old boat, a TK1. Remember that, Ian? And you brought it in. We started making those in the workshop. That was our first time just like introducing to canoeing. And so, it was Ian and Chris that we made these big, heavy, about 50 kilos of fiberglass clubbers. Remember those? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So how long were you guys paddling before you did the whole Murray?
12, 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
Not
similar boat.
Not me.
I forget the name of our unit, 21 Construction Squadron, had a bit of a tradition of paddling in the Murray River Marathon, and that got us interested. Chris decided that paddling wasn't for him, and that's how Michael and I got together. So towards the end of that year, that was 1998, 1978, sorry, we decided that we wanted to be competitive in the Murray Marathon, and that's when we looked at getting these, they were javelins, I think, Michael, weren't they?
Yeah, that's correct,
Okay.
Ian. Yeah.
We did a bit of research on them. We bought them ourselves, and we thought here that we'd like to do something a bit big. And originally I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but we talked about paddling around the coast of Victoria.
Yeah, that was because I think how that came up being there was a guy called Earl Bloomfield who was the first person to circumnavigate Tasmania at the time, and there was a lot of airplay and negative talk about him, and yeah. So if you look up, he was the first in a sea kayak, and of course, emergency response people didn't want him to do it, and I ended up meeting Earl. I did a commercial with him, and stuff, and that's how that started. It was probably how we got onto the Victoria coastline or something, Ian. I think that's probably how that eventuated on thought.
And then we were looking at the Guinness Book of Records, and that's when we saw the paddle down the Murray, and I think that's what got us going, really, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you remember what the time was that you saw in the book that you thought, we can beat that?
Yep. 36 days.
Blew that out of the water. Yeah, just halved it. No worries.
Couldn't you have done it in 30 days? Give us a bit more. Give us more time to beat you.
Big screen's gone wonky. Yeah. And remember, you said at the start there, Jono, in 17 days, you got to remember it was an extra 6 hours and 50 minutes. And after you've done 17 days, they count a lot.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's, I think I don't think we're underestimating, but I don't think we fully understand the gravity yet of how much this is going to hurt. Actually doing it day after day, sitting a metre away from each other, getting sick of each other for 3 weeks. But yeah, how did your relationship go while you were sharing a boat for 17 days, absolutely exerting yourself the whole time?
I thought we managed it fairly well.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, I don't remember any conflict. No, at all. Can you remember, Don?
Look, my recollection is there was no discipline problems or morale problems, and I think that goes a lot to the training all the guys had as soldiers, and that's something I've reflected on a little bit. I think because everyone was so well trained, we were sort of a really tight team, and I think that is really underpinned the whole sort of approach. And having two outstanding athletes and determined people like you, we just fell in beside you and behind you to make it happen. So it was really wonderful. And no, there was no problems like that. It was full steam ahead.
And it can't be underestimated. Sorry, Ian, that the reason this, we became, or the event became successful, was it was a team event. I mean, the team in the sense that the support crew, and it was phenomenal. And that's why, the only thing I think you might have trouble, unless you've got, like, the support crew we had was phenomenal, wasn't it, Don? About 15 people, full backing from the military, everything we had at our fingertips. Cooks, mechanics, Don, all the administration. Mate, all we had to do was put, paddle, left arm over right arm, and then sleep and get up and do it again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've got a small crew of essentially our families that have agreed to come with us. But excuse the ignorance as well, but I should have done my research. Did you have locks to deal with in 79?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's about 25 of them, isn't there, Ian? Do you remember?
There's 11.
Oh, is that all? God,
I think it's
25.
10 locks and 2 weirs.
How'd you navigate them? Did you have to get out the water and run at all, or did you just bring ahead and they'd fill it up?
We walked around the pool and there was
We went in one. Yeah.
one floated through, wasn't there?
Yeah, they set one. We wanted to have a go at it. Yeah, so they filled it up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Going back to that, how we were getting on. Keith, he was watching us the whole time. He was on the water the whole time, so he's probably got some memories of that time also.
Yeah. Look, from my memory, the relationships, as Don said, it's pretty amazing overall. But look, I remember some tense moments, and there's always going to be
for sure.
on a football field or anywhere. There's always going to be a few tense moments. But at the end of the day, you celebrate the victory, and you learn. Everyone's a bit different, and you learn that through our training, as Don mentioned as well. And everyone's a bit different, and can pull your strings or vice versa. But you move through that and you look past that. And yeah, it was about the grand prize, really, to watch Ian and Michael catch that wave at Gore and get dumped out for the first time on the whole trip. They paddled out into the surf and turned and they got thrown out of the boat.
Well, we'll make sure that we do that.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got photos of that.
Yeah, be careful. There's supposed to be sharks there too. So wait for the fish to come out. Apparently,
we had champagne as well, so it was good. I think Don might have been supplying that.
Greg and I have known each other for the best part of 30 years, and I don't remember once raising my voice at you. Like, I don't think we've ever had an actual argument about anything, and I know that's probably going to change in doing this, but good to hear that you guys got through it well.
Well, the hardest one was going across Lake Alexandrina and remember into the night, Keith, and we had the rovers on the hill and with the flashes, the beakers just going, and we just had to aim for those, and we had a crosswind coming on there, and gee, that was tough.
On that, actually, I've actually written down a question here that I'll read out for you. That Guinness have told us the crossing of Lake Alexandrina is mandatory. We have a record-keeping place in Goolwa that holds all the records unofficially, and they essentially tell you not to because it's so dangerous. People have died and all that sort of stuff trying to do it on their own. Well, if you could go into more detail of what crossing Lake Alexandrina was like for you guys as a team, that'd be good.
I can just add to that before the other guys. The lake is relatively shallow, and so therefore the wind picks up. And there was a good, 500 or 600 millimetre chop the whole way coming on an angle through there, and it was dark, and we were exhausted. We're trying to make it to the end, and and I think that record's interesting. I think a few years after we did it, I can remember there was a school group or a scout group or something came into drama, and I think some could have died on that. Like, do any of you guys remember that?
Vaguely, Michael, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have heard the story of what you're talking about, of a school group, like a school camp, all going out there on their boats, and I think 1 or 2 kids not coming back. But, yeah, it can get pretty rough.
Jono, just on that, as the so-called OIC officer in charge of that party, that was my do or die moment.
Yeah.
And it was like being the Apollo 13 being slung-shot at the other side of the moon. There was all that time. I didn't know if they were going to get across there. We were out of radio contact, out of visual. We knew how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
And everyone was right on edge. It was one of those real moments in life, I think. And I just sort of prayed to God that it all worked out okay.
Did the support boat go through with you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And would you say that having a support boat for that section is just like an absolute must?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep. That's a real good tip. How many hours were you guys spending on the water a day?
I started off 12, is what our target was, and then as the river became locked and we became exhausted, if my memory's correct, it started to build up because we kept trying to hit a target mark where, we had planned that we should be at. And so in the end, it got up to, 12, 15, 17 hours a day until Zena reminded me those last couple of days. What was it? You said into 48 hours or something.
You guys had a 2-hour break in a 36-hour window or something in the last 2 days or something like that?
I think we were looking at 3 or 4 days left.
Yep.
Once we hit Blanchetown, would that be right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds about right.
Yeah, because the whole theme, we kept trying to think we could still do it in maybe 16 days or something. So I think we're making these silly decisions.
Well, that was our target, and we were trying to achieve that every time. But
And that's
the first day, Jono, we paddled from the weir. We paddled up to the weir, touched the weir, and then took off. We paddled for 100 miles.
Yeah.
We didn't paddle 100 miles again in the whole over the whole period.
remember, lads, when we were coming into Yarrawonga through the backwaters of Yarrawonga Weir, and yet we were getting lost. There was just a myriad of like channels, and it was tree covered, and we didn't know where we were going. We were just we're following water, but they they kept breaking it, like splitting the atom. There was channels and channels and channels, and wasn't it? We were, and then you come across that lake to get up to Yarrawonga. Yeah, that was tough.
That's a really good point for the whole challenge, Willie. Of course, we only had paper maps in those days.
Yeah.
So there was no GPS, anything like that. So everything was done off river charts and paper maps. So navigation was really important, not only for on the river, as Willie just pointed out, the various routes you could end up taking, but also for the road team, the land-based team, to keep up and get access into the paddlers as well. So that was really tricky to do.
Yeah,
We
I
will.
was telling Ian when we were talking on ago that at the start we had to do a security up at what was it? What did you say? What band? Bonagilla. Is that it, Ian? Where we did the security for those up the
Bonagilla. Yeah.
Yeah, and next door there was the map division, and at the time I went in there and I got all the maps of the Murray River military maps, and we cut them down because they had a lot of the tracks which Dom and his team would have been following along the river wherever possible. Because they had they were wanting 250,000 maps or something. So we had the whole but we didn't have GPS, but we had the whole river mapped per se from military maps. Yeah.
Don, as the sort of lead organiser through this, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? What were some of the hardest things for you?
Probably the hardest thing for me was the record keeping. So we'd organised a whole lot of representatives from various councils and shires and various cities along the route to come down and validate that the canoes were going past. So that was every day. That was the job of contacting, the people for future days, but also picking up the mare from wherever, bringing them down to the river, or the local police sergeant, or someone who would officiate to do the record keeping. So that was quite a challenge, and that could involve hundreds of kilometres of driving. And of course, we had no mobile phones then, so to pre-organise all that was a real challenge. To actually validate the record. And I'm not sure what the current Guinness record criteria is, but that was a real challenge. And there was a couple of us, that's all we did every day, while the campsite would leapfrog to the next meeting place. So that activity of leapfrogging a camp which was a truck and refrigeration down the river for the next campsite that was going on. And remember, we also were buying fresh rations as we went down. So you'd have to go and do shopping at a town. And we didn't have a card in those days, so I had a little cash box. And you'd have to count out the money for the cook to go and buy the rations as he went through bloody whatever town it was, Brother Glen grocery store, and buy the carrots and the wheat bix or whatever. So pretty old-fashioned, and even simple things like petrol. Again, no cards. It was either pay by a cash system I had, or there was a couple of pre-designated fuel points that the Army had a contract with, and you could sign it. So it was very difficult just refuelling vehicles, getting food, and in particular getting the officials to record as people went through the checkpoints, etc.
Second, a bit on food. You just brought that up. We ate exceptionally well, and huge meals, and breakfast and dinner. And on the water alone, we would consume about a jumbo loaf of sandwiches a day, and about a box of Mars bars each, and a day. Wasn't it? It was amazing. And you know what? After this, I went on to do a uni degree in sports coaching and management. And at uni, when you do, well, at the time we didn't know this, but you do the math on the calculation on the kilojoules. When we got out, I and like Ian, we had virtually no muscle or anything left on our legs. Still had a reasonable upper half, but the body had consumed everything it could in the lower half, and we still couldn't keep up the kilojoules going in. Just how much energy, and of course you go to, after uni, you do the math on this, and it was phenomenal.
We have our watches and whatnot, and that's one of the things that tells you how many calories you're burning while you're paddling. And even for a 20k paddle, we're burning 1,500 calories. So that's, what's that, like 6,000 kilojoules. So it's no surprise that 120 k's will you just shrivel you up, really.
I just don't know how we're going to eat that much food.
I don't know how you're going to eat that much.
You're just going to eat the whole time.
We ate the whole time, didn't we, Ian? It was just constantly munching away. Yeah.
And I haven't eaten a Mars bar since.
No, I hardly even. But I tell people about, we would have a box of Mars bars, like literally, it sounds phenomenal, but you just wanted to keep eating. A bit like the Tour de France, and you just got to keep eating. You got to eat. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Keith, you were going to jump in just before.
Yes, I just wanted to finish off. You asked about Don, but he's probably playing his role down more than a bit. But he was officer in charge, and I forget how many men there were, 10 men or whatever, and
14.
He was responsible to the Commonwealth for the lives of those guys, and it was pretty wild. It was at times quite dangerous. We took some risks, a lot of risks, and Don wore all the risk. That was his job, but and he trained for that. But I got to say, on reflection, I've had things in my own career after that where I was in charge of a lot of men doing dangerous stuff, and it would have been a nightmare for him. And it was only a job a young man could probably do.
Plus, we were all close mates, weren't we, Keith? Like that was another which helped. That we sort of looked after each other because we were all friends. Yeah.
The friendship between you guys is really obvious, and that's fantastic. It's very cool.
Many things could have gone wrong,
and look, I really keep putting it back to the quality of the training that everyone had. The medic we had that came along was probably the best medic in Puckapunyal. The Lance Corporal cook that we had and Army cooks haven't got a good reputation, but they actually are very well trained. And Lance Corporal Knox looked after 14 people, for 16 days, 17 days, beautifully. And, he never got any complaints, and that's a pretty hard task. So, and everybody else had these great background skills. They were either combat engineers or tradespeople of some sort. And a really high-skilled, motivated bunch of people. It was a pleasure to be there. And luckily, the motor mechanic we had come along with us, he didn't actually go through the Army Apprentices School. He was recruited straight out of Civvy Street. But I think he was also a part-time crook. He knew how to steal cars and borrow parts. And there was one time our Land Rover needed a few parts, and I didn't ask exactly where he got them from, but I think there's a Land Rover in South Australia somewhere missing a few parts.
Still sitting there.
So, you know, a bit of ingenuity.
Very cool.
Is very helpful.
Before we... you go, Michael.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I think, Don, you would have had to organise. Remember, they were flying or bringing parts back in from 21 for the vehicles, weren't they? Remember there was a few breakdowns and things like that on the boats?
And this is another really good point where your support team, ours went back to our one of the best squadrons probably in the whole Australian Army, and we had a particularly good commanding officer at the time, a bloke called Rainer Frisch, who was actually a Commonwealth runner athlete. So he was a sportsman and a real dynamo, ended up being a full colonel, well-renowned, and I knew that if our team got in any trouble, I'd just have to contact him and he would move mountains. Yeah, we also had a very good second-in-command, a bloke called Gary Barker, who was a brilliant civil engineer and administrator, and he was the one I dealt with day to day. And he would just point the finger and say, Don, you don't let anything stuff up, but if it does, you tell me. And I think we got to our third outboard motor on the safety boat. So we broke motors. I think the number of propellers we went through was about 16 or 17. Tyres was actually pretty tough driving, and we ran out of, stuffed a few tyres.
Yep.
So things like spare parts, you really need someone who can do that for you and get it to you quickly.
Don,
so having that backup is really important.
Don, if you're looking for something to do October next year, you'd be very welcome.
And I think Truck and Ian have mentioned Leachy. Leachy was sort of the father figure, the sergeant major of the outfit. So we were all only in our early 20s when we were doing this, and he was probably 10 years older than us, I suppose. But he was a Vietnam veteran who'd actually got blown up in the Barrier minefield in Vietnam and survived. So he was a very tough, very quiet, unassuming soldier who was never going to stop at anything. And he'd just look at you and you knew, I better toe the line. So that was a very subtle, disciplined father figure right there mentoring us all, I think. And that was a really good motivator to have him there. Yeah, so never underestimate that sort of power either. Yeah, look, just reflecting back on it, I hadn't realised what a wonderful thing we've done. The Murray River is the third longest river in the world, and we've made a fantastic record that has held for nearly half a century. Now, that's a pretty significant achievement.
It could hold for more than that, we don't know.
And I've reflected back, and it's a couple of things. It's a really good, exceptional bunch of athletes on the river, and the determination of Ian and Willie is just beyond reproach. But they were well supported on the water with some really good people as well, and then supported on the land with a chain that went up. If something really went wrong, we could come in and just get those canoes down the bloody river to break that record. So it's a really significant achievement.
Absolutely.
And I want to help you guys in any way we can, because it'd be lovely to have that record broken. Because the Murray is sort of the heart and soul of our whole country, I think. It's a magnificent river, and it represents so much for all of Australia. So.
Yeah, for sure.
And the cause, John, on that, raising money for, that's another great, hand the baton over to the younger ones and let them make some money for the homeless people. Yeah, great.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can, shake a few pockets.
We'll wrap up in just a minute, but I'm loving this. How can we just go around and just sort of one tip that you feel like we should really hang on to and really try and work to for our trip, whether that be training or, friendship or whatever it is? Do you guys each have one thing at all?
I would say that it's the support. You can't do this, as an individual or just a pair of paddlers. There's no way. You just won't do it. It was the support, the army. I mean, I tell people to this day how I loved my time in the army, as I'm sure these Don and Keith and do too. But and we just couldn't have done. If they hadn't, gone with the adventure training idea, this would never have pulled off. And then, then Don, took control then of the administration, and Keith and like on the water, and you just can't do it without a team. Impossible.
One thing I'd like to add is I think it's really good to have a big aim, and in your case, you've got one, helping homelessness. And I think that's because when things get a bit tough, you've got to know, why are we bloody doing this? In this case, it's to help homelessness. And I think, as we know, homelessness and purchasing homes is one of the biggest problems our country faces right at the moment.
Yeah, big time.
So if you keep that big aim in mind, everything sort of feeds into that, and that could be helpful when times are tough.
Jono, and Greg, the rivers is a dangerous place. A couple of memories. Like if you're paddling along and you're in close to shore, next thing you put a rip down the side of your canoe from an old weir that was rotting away, but still just under the water, and it's a dangerous place. Up the top there's submerged trees and all sorts of things. So you guys probably paddle the river a lot, but doing it at night all gets a little bit more risky. So yeah, put big days in. Get off the water and have a good rest.
Yeah, I've been told that we should reinforce the bottom. I know others that have done this in the past, like as singles and whatnot, they've had to reinforce the bottoms of their boat, otherwise they just get ripped apart by submerged trees and stuff. So definitely something to look at.
There was one canoe that split. It hit a root or something and split down the side, and there's actually more tape on it than paint. That's right, isn't it?
I think it's just been invented, hasn't it? Gaffer tape.
Right. Gaffer tape, yeah, it was pretty cool. 100 mile an hour tape or something.
Yeah. Put some.
My advice is to try and enjoy it. Every day's there is a lot of monotony along the river, and a lot that is the same, but there's also a lot of interesting things, and it's quite a beautiful place. And if you can, and boredom was another thing that we had to overcome, and by being able just to chew the fat about where we were and what we were doing. You brought up a thing a while ago, or last time we spoke, Michael, where we were trying to figure out what those
white things were.
Allen boats were.
Yeah. I'll tell that.
You go.
Because I'm sitting in the behind Ian at this stage, and he's paddling away, and he says to me, "Look at those sailboats up in front of us on the river." And I'm looking, pull my head to the side, and I'm looking, what? He's saying, yeah. He's starting to hallucinate. I'm thinking, these sailboats, you know what they were? They were a flock of pelicans sitting on the water. And he thought they were sailboats. See, this is what happens after you paddle for 10 or days or so. Yeah.
Back on. Just one other thing that I recall, it was just out of, it was either just out of Mildura or near Wentworth, where we had that dust storm. Do you guys remember that?
Yes, yeah.
It was a shocker. We hid under, there were these catamaran like houseboats, and we hid under those while the dust storm was on. But it was horrendous. If we had been in open water then, might have been a bit tricky, I think, but just another memory.
And they're common weather events which happen in that area too. So don't be surprised if you don't come across one too.
Well, it's been obviously fantastic talking to you guys, and we could do it all day if our memory card wasn't about to spit it out.
We're all really hoping that you can knock this off. And if we can help in any way, don't hesitate to sing out.
Yeah, thanks so much for your support through all this and your advice and whatnot. And I was going to say I hope it's not, but it definitely won't be the last time that I reach out to you guys for sure. So, yeah, I guess from my end at least, till we chat again.
And key is the logistics side of stuff, I reckon. If you can nail that, it gives you guys every chance of succeeding, which I hope you do.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, really. Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks, ladies.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Really.
John, whereabouts are we up to in our own progress? I'll go first.
Sure.
I am not really paddling that much. Jono's dragging me out, and I'm probably getting out, I don't know, once a month. When we first lit this up, which was the start of last year, I was in the gym a lot. I've actually put on 8 kilos, which has been, really good because I've gone from a wiry string bean to just a bit of a string bean. But, yeah, just sort of trying to put on a little bit of strength. And, yeah, now I'm really looking forward to finding a bit of motivation to start paddling. I knew that it was going to be a long run-up, and I think for me, I'm really trying to find that motivation. I think this chat with the guys is going to be really good for that.
Chuck the podcast on when you're paddling, mate, and have a listen to those guys talk again.
Gee, they sound great. So do I.
Yeah. From my end on that side, we went for a paddle a few weeks ago together. Oh, not a few weeks, a couple of weeks ago,
yep.
And where we actually really pushed ourselves to see if we can sit at the speeds we need to sit at for a lengthened period of time. And yeah, I paddle a lot more than Greg, and Greg was still coasting in front of me. So I'm not worried at all.
Coasting's kind.
I mean, we were both pushing.
Working.
We were both pushing for
that
sure.
Day.
And so yeah, I knew going into this that I had ground to make up on Greg. He's always been a better athlete than I, and that's just the way it is. But those of you that are watching on YouTube can probably see size is not my issue, and I need to get smaller if anything.
You've been doing a wonderful job on that front, though, John.
Yeah. I think I'm down about 8 actually now.
Yeah.
But long way to go. But we've got a year and a half to go too. So that's cool. With my progress, so yeah, we as Greg just mentioned, come up with this idea January in 24, and I then went out and bought a kayak and all that sort of stuff. And my first paddle was in March 24, so literally a year ago. We're filming this in March, and I did a 3K paddle. And I had to pull over to the side of the river every kilometre, stretch the legs, the abs were sore, the back was sore, I was gassed, the shoulders were burning. And yeah, literally 3Ks took me probably an hour and a half. And at this point, I'm thinking, what have I committed to? This is just stupid. I'm going to do 150 Ks a day. But this 3Ks is gassing me 2 years out. And I stuck with it, and we've come a long way now. Still a long way to go, obviously, but yeah, 20 Ks is doable without getting off the boat, without waking up the next day sore and all that sort of stuff. So it's more of a time thing. Me and Greg both have families and whatnot, and now it's finding the time to spend the time on the boat, not so much of how much effort we can put in, sort of thing. And so I'm pretty happy with how far I've come in a year on the kayak, because a year ago was looking pretty grim, but now it's this was also on a kayak that you can't tip unless you tip it on purpose, and was nice big comfy seat or that sort of stuff. And now we're on skis that actually take a little bit of skill to be able to paddle correctly. Otherwise, you just end up in the drink most of the time, which I still do plenty, but a lot less than what I was even 10 weeks ago.
Our kayak progression, it's slowly improving from terrible kayaks to slightly better things now. in a similar way to the guys, I suppose. Although they were building some of their vessels, which is,
They were building their own
which
guys.
is incredible. So,
Yeah.
John, I've had a wonderful time here today. I'm feeling really amped up about it, and
for sure.
Stoked. This has actually gone better than I expected, and I'm really looking forward to the next paddle and the next pod.
And we have so much more we can talk about, but this is the first episode of 20. We've got, we'll get in 20 episodes before we go, which is 19 months away before we head off. So we might do one post show or something like that, but let's see how we go. And essentially, this is what it's going to look like every month. We'll have a different guest on every month, and who have their own phenomenal stories to tell. We've got some really good people lined up. Some household name people, which are really will be really exciting to talk to you, and others that you might not have heard of that have just done ridiculous things without plastering it all over the news and whatnot. So, can't wait for all that. Really, as in general, can't wait for all that to happen. So,
Thanks very much, John.
Till next time.
Do it again soon.
Absolutely.